So in my last video, I built a Wordle clone because I was on a long flight and couldn't play it normally. If you're interested in that video, I will link it here and in the description. If you're not, then this video is going to be a little bit obscure, but also might give you some QA hints, so maybe watch it anyway. Well, in ending part 1 video, I said how after building the functionality of being able to play the game on repeat, I got very bored and frustrated with it really quickly. So in this video, I will show you how I added an attempt button and let the game attempt words itself. Basically, so I never have to play a word again, missing the entire concept of the game and ruining the fun I had for it. Basically, it was a really long flight. So I'm not sure why I do this to myself, but let's begin. So let's start off with a quick refresher. We've got the game here with all of its scripts set up, the puzzling area and the keyboard. So I've pressed play, it boots up, it gives us a word which we can get by pressing the spoiler in the manager, which we can see is given here. So I could type in something like think here and press enter, and it would go across and some of the words would be darked out because they can't be used, and some of them would tell me that it's going to have those letters somewhere. So we type in this given because we're cheating, and we can see yes, it works, and pressing enter restarts it. And that's the basic premise of Wordle, and we can see it all running here. So what we're going to do is we're going to add in a button that enables us to do an attempt, and that attempt will fill in a word that it will get from the word repository and will basically play it as you would do normally. So this could be used as a sort of a QA process, and this is something I would do on any puzzler I was making. Have the actual puzzler attempt to do something, whether that's by an AI or just a random generator, and that would enable me to test very, very quickly without having to play the game every single time. So in our game flow manager, we have this key pass and pass input functionality. And what we're going to do is we're going to use this functionality in our attempt, because I don't want to circumvent everything, because if I was writing this as a QA and this was a test, then I would want to use as close as possible to what actually happened in the code from a user input as I possibly could. So in this case, we're going to, as before, if you saw the previous video, we're going to make sure that the game is actually in a puzzle state that's in progress. Puzzle state in progress, because if it's not, we're not interested. Basically, if the game is completed or if it's been failed, we're not interested in continuing. Now we're going to get the word from the word repository. Well, let's put a placeholder in here at the moment while we go through how this code is going to work in the game flow manager. So we'll get our word from the word repository, and then we're going to pass that word into this pass input, which does a for loop going around, putting each key in turn into the letters that we see in our grid on our Wordle game. And then we're going to do on key pressed and use a key code return, which will enter that word and play the guess word functionality. So it will work just like we've done it in input. So let's see it happen. So we'll do pass input word, and then the next thing on key pressed, and we can use key code return. And that's all we need to do. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to create this word in our word repository. So let's see how we do that. Okay, so we're going to open our word repository class, and as you can see, we've got the basics in here that we had from previously. Get a random word and check whether the word we've actually entered into the letter grid actually exists. Well, we're going to add a new function into this, and this is going to be a function called get word. And what this is going to do is this is actually going to take a letter array. We'll put that there. Now, the letters that we're actually going to pass it are all the letters we've entered into the grid so far, because we want to know that the word that we're getting back has the letters that we know are in the correct place. We want to know that this new word has those letters in the correct place, and any letters that we found that are in the wrong position at the moment, we want to know that that word that we're getting back has those letters actually existing in it and in a different location, because we know they're in the wrong location. So we want to be able to do that within this functionality. And the first thing we're going to do is we're actually going to use a string builder to collect all the letters, all the characters we've currently got in our letters list. And then we'll get back all the words from the repository that use those letters within them. So we'll create a string builder. We'll run through all the letters we've got. So letters.length, I++. Okay, now we're only interested in the letters that are currently in the correct location or in the wrong location. We're not interested in any that aren't correct. So if letters I dot letter state equals letter state correct, or letters I dot letter state equals letter state wrong location. So if either of these exist or are true, then we're going to append the character that's actually in that letter, which we get from the entry.value, if you remember from the previous video, and that will actually append all of those in as we want them. Right, okay, so the next thing we want to do is we want to basically create a list of answers. So the reason we do this is we could just check, does a word have all of the correct letters in it and in the correct locations, and just pass back the first word we find that has that. But we're actually want to take all the words that could be possible answers and select randomly between those, because what we're looking to do here is simulate a user's input. So they won't know the first word that comes in our particular word dictionary that has those particular letters. They'll be basically selecting off randomness from their memories and events, etc. Okay, so what we'll do is we want to look through all the words that are in our word list. So this is the text asset with all the words, the 5-letter words that we're going to be using. And we want to go through and select just the ones that include the letters that we've just shown. So we'll do a for each over each of the words. We'll take the words list that's been created, and we'll use the link library to select the ones we're actually interested in. So W input, oh, not input, sorry, SB dot toString dot all W dot contains. Okay, so that's just using the link library to get all the words that we're interested in from the list that actually include the letters that we've collected so far. Now what we want to do is we want to go through each of the rows that we have already entered. So where letters are in rows that we've created in our grid, we want to go through each of those in turn and test those against the words that we have in our list. So we're going to be wanting to collect whether it's a correct word. So we'll just put a flag in there, bool correct. And then we want to go through our rows. So J equals 0, J is less than letters dot length, J plus equals game flow manager dot K word length. And this is the set constant in the game flow manager right at the very top. This is this set constant that's set to 5, and we've made this public so that we can use this throughout. We don't set new constants in each of our classes that are actually related to the same constant. We've got this public one here. And what I would usually do is I wouldn't actually have that in the game flow manager. I'd probably put that out into a constants class, a static class called constants that had all the global constants. But here we're just putting it in that class because it's a bit of a hacky solution, but this is a hacky game we're doing. So game flow manager dot K word length I++. So this outside for loop is going to go through all of our rows, and this inside for loop is going to go through that row. So row 0, row 2, row 3, and this is row 0, or first letter, second letter, etc. Okay, so now we want to get the letter index. So this is from our array, so we can feed back into that array and pick out the letter we're interested in, and that's the row plus the column. And then we want to basically jump out if this particular letter index, if the state of it is unknown. So if we haven't actually filled that state yet, we're not interested at all. So letter state unknown, then just do a continue because we're not interested in that. Okay, so let's get to the letters that have actually been filled in. So we want to see if the letter matches. And this is where we're testing our word that we're interested in. So the word I, so the word that we've got from our list, we want to see if the character in this word, if this is the same as the letter from the letter index. So in our word that we've already entered in our grid, whether it's actually the same letter. So we just want to know if that matches. And then we want to do some conditional things to see if it actually matches and what that state actually means. So if we look at this, if we go, okay, letters, letter index dot letter state equals letter state incorrect, or just grab this, do a copy and paste job, dot wrong location, and letter matches, then correct equals false, and we can break out of this loop. Now what we're doing here is we're saying, okay, if the word that we're currently pulled out of the dictionary, out of our text asset, if that word, if the letter in that word I is the same as the letter we're sending in, the one of the words we've already entered, if that is the same, and we know the state is incorrect or wrong location, so it's not the result we're looking for, basically, but it's the same, then okay, that's not the word we're looking for, because otherwise it would have been a different letter, a different location. Whereas here, we want to kind of do the opposite. So if the letter state is equal to letter state correct, and it doesn't match. So if we already know that one of the letter in this particular location on our list, we know that the letter we've already got from letters, we know that's the correct letter. So if it doesn't match in this word that we've picked out, then again, it's not correct. So we false and we break. Okay, and then we'll say out of this loop, if not correct, then break out the loop. We're not interested in this particular word. If it is correct, then we are interested in this word. And all we'll do is we'll just add it to our answers array. Word, done. So that's just our basic test to see if we've got a letter in this word, if this word is going to be a viable option for our next attempt. Okay, so once we've gone through all the words that we're actually interested in and we've added all of our answers, so we've created this list of answers, what we'll do is we'll say if the answers count is greater than 0, then return answers random range, what I wanted, random range from 0 to the answers.count -1, because it's exclusive. Okay, otherwise return null. So what we're doing there is we're saying, okay, give me a random one back, because as we said, we want this to kind of mimic the human nature, the human reality of our input, rather than the computer just saying, right, give me the first word I find that's slightly different. That's going to be considered a good attempt. Okay, let's save that and we'll go back into the game flow manager. Now in the game flow manager, we'll come down to our attempt where we left a blank space here, and this is where we actually want to get the word we're interested in. So we'll say if current row is greater than 0, because we're not going to do if on our first attempt we don't have any letters, so why would we be interested? We'll just fill that with a random word. But in this one, because we already have letters existing, we'll say, right, get us a word. And what we want to do here is we want to pass back the letters, but obviously we only want to pass back the letters for the range that we've already filled in. So we can say mletters dot get range, and this range can be 0 to our current row multiplied by k word length. And that's the range. That's what we're interested in passing back. And of course, that will actually, we'll have to send that to an array. There we go. Excellent. Right, now, as I said, if we haven't got the current row, so if we haven't actually got a word, so if this returns null, or when we're actually on row 0, then we'll want to actually just get a random word. So in this case, what we can do is we can just say string dot is null or empty or white space or whatever. We'll say if this word basically hasn't been filled in, then the word will get that word from the word repository, get random word, take a random guess as a human would do. There we go. And that's it. That's our attempt functionality and our word repository returning a word. So let's save that. Now we're going to want a way to basically attempt this, to perform this functionality. And at the moment, as you can see, I've got 0 references here because I haven't set up a button. I haven't set up anything else to call that. Now, in our last video, we showed how we had the game manager editor set up to show us spoilers if we wanted to see the spoiler itself and ruin the game for ourselves. But what we can do is we can actually just add a button in here, and this button we'll call attempt, and we'll say, okay, cool, mmanager dot attempt. So we're going to call that functionality. So let's save that and jump back into Unity. Okay, so back in Unity, we press play. We'll look at our manager. Let's just see what our spoiler is, because this is the first time we're using this, so this is a QA attempt. First word is speed. It's a terrible word when we're trying to get to coach. Next word is learn. Oh, look, we've got the A. That's actually been attempted and it's found that. So the next word should keep that A. Brilliant. But it's doing really badly. So now we've got flash. So now we've got an H there. So the next word should have that A and H in the right location. And it's come back with coach. That seems a little bit sus. So let's try this again. Make sure that it wasn't just a happy accident. So spoiler, our next word is going to be meant. We'll do an attempt, which is hence. And there we go. We've got some wrong locations here. So the next word has changed and it's used the E that it's got there and it's put the N in a different location. Needs. Meant. Okay, cool. So it tried to put N in the other location. That was the wrong location. So the next word it came up with, it tried to put N in another location. And of course, that wasn't the right location again. So it done another guess and it got it all in the right location and meant fit everything that it basically knew. It knew it couldn't use any of these letters. It knew that it had these 2 letters in the wrong location and it knew it had an E here. So that filled in and it came up with meant. Okay, well, that's great and all, but we want to basically put something in here to enable us to do it on the fly. We don't have to come to the manager and press it every time. So let's jump into our canvas, and I'm not going to do this very neatly because it's just a basic thing to show. And I'm going to chuck in a button, and that button's in a terrible location and a terrible way of laid out. So I'm going to move it down here, put it over the side here. I'm going to make it fit the sort of color because you want to basically keep everything pretty much the same. So I'm going to keep that as a darker gray. I'm going to come in here and check what the text I was using. So in that case, I was using regular. I'm going to do the same thing here because you want to keep consistency when you're building buttons, because the user wants to see these buttons and go, okay, I know that was a button from previous, and now that thing looks exactly like another button. So great, I'll just use that button. And also all of our buttons are in capitals, and we'll bring this down to 10 so it looks very similar to that. And then all we'll do is we'll change this so it's a little bit thinner. There we go. Oh, that's the text. We won't actually be doing the button. There we go. So now we can make sure, there we go, we've got our attempt button there. And we'll change our name so we know what it's actually for. So we can call this attempt button. And then down here, we'll just add a click event. We'll take our manager, and we made our attempt a public, and that's it. Excellent. So now when we save and when we play, now we can just press attempt, and we can just cheat. And it's nice and cheaty. Oh, there we go. Oh, nearly. And this time we're on the money. Great. And we can press enter to restart the game, press attempt again, and we could just keep going. And now this is Wordle without actually having to play Wordle. Great. So let's go one step further. What I'm having to do to clear the game is I'm having to press enter, and that's just annoying. So let's jump back into our Gameflow Manager. And what we'll do is a similar system to this. If we've pressed attempt and the puzzle is in progress, then what we'll do is we'll just restart. So now, if I go back to Unity, this will be our completed cheat game. So now press attempt. Oh, what a good guess. Oh, what a terrible guess. Wow, there's a lot of liked. There we go, light. But now if I press attempt, it clears it down and I can start again. Now this is literally a one button click game. Great stuff. And that's it. Now I've ruined my own clone and I'll have to go play something else because this as a one-click game is terribly boring. But on a more functional note, when I create puzzle games like this, I always like to make some sort of automation around finishing the puzzle the way a user would, and as a quick process for some QA. But obviously, for a full release of a game, a puzzle game, I'm actually going to play it myself and test that it works as a normal interaction. I'm not just going to have one of these cheat buttons everywhere. And I certainly wouldn't release with one of these cheat buttons. It just doesn't make sense for the game itself. Wow, that was a close one right at the end there. But you can see how this works as a QA process, because trying to solve Wordle puzzles again after again after again to try and make sure that things are working correctly and the animations are looking correct, that just doesn't make sense. It becomes very hard to do, and this will get you around that and enable you to test quicker. So if you enjoyed these couple of videos on Wordle and how I basically created a clone and then cheated on it, then hit the like button. And if you haven't done so already, consider subscribing to the channel. And as always, thanks for watching.